This episode of Black Girl Lost Keys is premiering for the very first time on July 1st, which would have been my brother's 30th birthday. We miss you, Nelson. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Life with Lost Keys, the Black Girl Lost Keys podcast. I am overjoyed to be here with you. It's been a long time coming, and we just could never find the time or find the right way or the right format. And we're here at long last. And I am so excited. I think we're going to be able to put together a podcast from a really unique perspective and share some stories maybe you hadn't heard of before, or maybe that you didn't know what was going on. So I hope there's going to be a huge opportunity for learning and growth, and not just for you, but for me too. This first guest coming up is Evelyn Polk Green. Now, I make jokes a lot of times that I know everybody in ADHD land, but Evelyn and I meeting seemed like it took so much longer than it ordinarily does. So let's get into it. My name is René Brooks, but you may have heard of me by my blog name, Black Girl Lost Keys. I started the blog to incorporate my culture into my experiences with ADHD. Managing ADHD isn't easy. We have challenges in some key areas like forgetfulness, showing up late, losing stuff, and big emotions. Sometimes you find your stuff, sometimes you find yourself. That's life with Lost Keys. On our podcast, you'll get to be a fly on the wall to everything. Talks with friends, other ADHD adventures, and a lot more. It's time to get started. Speaking of time, this podcast is proudly sponsored by Timo, a paid subscription app that helps you organize your life, stick to your routines, and work towards your personal goals in a visual and motivating way. To learn more about Timo, head to blackgirllostkeys.com/Timo. Thank you for joining me for the first episode of Black Girl Lost Keys' new podcast, Life with Lost Keys. We're going to have a great show for you. I think we'll have a lot of fun. Today, I've brought on a guest who you may or may not have heard of before, but if you haven't, you should. Evelyn Polk Green is here, the original Black girl with Lost Keys around here. They didn't know about that part.
That's pretty accurate. The original. I've been doing this for a long time,
That's
30
it.
years.
So tell us what you've been doing for those 30 years.
Well, when my children, I'm like many people of my generation, not so much younger, but my generation, like a lot of mothers, women, I got diagnosed after my child got diagnosed. And so his doctor for 3 or 4 years kept telling me I needed to open a chapter here in the city of Chicago because the only ones around us were in the suburbs. And that's a story unto itself. But anyway, I finally did it. I started the CHAD chapter. We were the only CHAD chapter, to my knowledge, that was actually multiracial. It wasn't, just pale folks there. It was all of us were there. We purposely met in a very integrated neighborhood, which is not easy to find in Chicago, the most segregated city in America. So that's not easy to find, but we went out of our way to do that. And so I was the coordinator of that chapter for, I don't know, not very long, probably a year and a half before I got tapped to do some stuff on the national board, and then eventually joined the national board. And a year after, not a year, 6 months after I joined it, I was the secretary because we had some people leave. And a couple years after that, I was the president. And so I was president of CHAD, which is Children and Adults with Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, for those who don't know. And you should know, especially if you have children with ADHD. And so I was president of CHAD for a couple of years, did my presidency, my post-presidency about half a year, or a little more than half a year. And then the folks at ADDA asked me to come work with them. and that's the adult. Well, it's adult is not in our title. It's the Attention Deficit Disorder Association, but we are the association that concentrates on adults. That our focus is on adults, and so they asked me to come work for them, and I popped over there because um, I realized that by that point, I realized that I also had ADHD. Again, part of that generation that got diagnosed when their children were diagnosed, and because that was my original impotence for getting involved in advocacy was my son. But then I realized I had my own issues, plus he was growing up, and I was smart enough to know it wasn't going away, so we needed to start looking at adult issues. So I popped over there to ADDA, and I have been working pretty intensely with ADDA ever since. I was president for actually, I think a little over 10 years because nobody else would take it. I begged and pleaded, but nobody else would take it. Till finally, I found somebody else with a big L on their forehead and sent them on the way. And so now I am a past. I am the immediate passport president of ADDA. Immediate being it's been a couple years now because he can't find anybody to take his place. So yeah, it's been a couple years, and I still work with them quite a few things with them.
That's why he keeps you close, because he's like, "Oh, you gonna come back one of these days? You gonna be looking the wrong way, and I'm gonna drop the presidency in your bag and run away."
Nope, not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. He knows I'm here for anything he needs, except
he's trying to slip it into your pocket.
Girl, no, thank you. I had enough years of herding them cats. No, thank you. No, thank you.
So imagine there I was, I'm trying to get myself organized and start my blog about living with ADHD. And as I'm drilling down, trying to find more Black experience out there, I find out that not only am I not completely alone in ADHD land, they let this Black woman run everything around here. And I was here for that. And so, of course, as I'm getting acquainted with the community, there are people telling me like, wow, Evelyn, 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 but they never would introduce me to Evelyn. They would never introduce me.
Same thing here. I would hear once you guys started, René, have you met René? Well, no, because nobody's introduced me. Now, if y'all gonna make me make that cold call, I will. But no. Yeah, I had lots of folks.
That's the only thing about, like, it very much seems like in the community, like, if you want to get to know somebody, like, you can cold email, but we don't be checking our email like that. So the best way to get to us is to get to somebody else who can get to us. Don't like you can email, but if you send somebody to come grab me, it might work a little bit better.
It might work a little bit better because I might check the email. That doesn't mean I'm gonna respond to it. That don't mean I'm gonna remember I saw it.
I read it and said, I want to give that some more consideration. I'm going to sit and think about the answer to that. Okay. And 5 years later, I'm like, oh, damn.
I think that I have about 3 people that my son has asked me to introduce you to. And I don't think I've sent you one email about them.
This is the first I'm hearing about it.
There you go.
The thing. I think that was the thing. Like, we floated around. I feel like we really just got a chance to meet and talk with each other, like maybe 2-3 years ago. Probably
not even 3. It's more like 2 year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe. Yeah.
And I think, like, I can't remember what it was, but it was something somebody was doing, and they had us both show up, and I was like, finally.
Yes. I'm actually gonna get a chance to meet her. Yay!
Yes.
And then I think the first time we actually talked, it was where we on the phone like 4 hours.
Yes, because we were like, yes, you. Oh, aren't you tired of talking to all of these people who don't get it? Me too. Oh.
Yes.
So,
and now they don't know what they've done because they did get us together. So that could be trouble for them.
They put it off as long as they could. They were like, absolutely not. So I dragged you in here partially because I wanted everybody to know that Evelyn is still kind of running the show around here. So, that's pretty cool. And so that you would hear a little bit more about the orgs that she is past president of. Chad and Ada, hear a lot of organizing in the community. And I think organizing is wonderful. But the thing about organizing is that you can be stronger if you join things that already have some structure in place, some funding in place, some platform in place to get
Yes.
your message elevated. Like these orgs are full of people who are incredibly approachable. Most of them are neurodivergent themselves and super enthusiastic about meeting you and hearing about how you want to get involved if you want to get involved. So, you know, as Evelyn was saying, she started with her boys and created a chapter and then elevated up. So if you're looking to break into organizing, this could be a
Yeah.
great way to get
That
involved.
is definitely a great way to get involved. And I would say, especially, full disclosure, I can talk a lot more about adult stuff in ADDA now because that's the organization I've been the most involved with the last 10, 15 years. But especially, we are always looking for people, and we are always looking for um, a diverse range of people, a diverse, range of new world divergent folks that because we understand that the adult community encompasses everybody with
Absolutely.
it's everybody. And we're always looking for ideas to do new and different things. So as one of the things that I didn't even realize, they asked me a couple of weeks ago to host. They had a board meeting, an open kind of it wasn't actually a board meeting, but it was a meet the board event, and they asked me to kind of be the MC for it, to be the moderator for the panel. And I did not even realize, because again, I'm not as involved on a board level, but we've got, for how long I was the only thing of any color anywhere in any ADHD space for too many years to count. And we have got Black board members, we've got Asian board members,
Yes.
we've got folks from Australia, we've got folks from Europe on the board. And so they have really, I feel like a proud mama whose kids actually heard what she was saying and followed
Yes.
the pattern. And I was just thrilled when I realized that. And so, yes, ADDA definitely is looking. So if you're an adult with ADHD and want to get involved, there's all kinds of, they have virtual support groups. They're always coming up with new initiatives, as you can imagine, because adults with ADHD, we don't know how to say no. So there's always a lot of stuff, always a lot of stuff going on. And always welcome new ideas, which is one of the things that I really, really love and appreciate about ADDA, is always willing to listen to new ideas. And even if we can't do it right now, we're still willing to listen and, figure out where it can be put in the grand scheme of things.
Thank you so much for that. Do you hate the feeling of fumbling around in the morning? Do you feel like you're always scrambling around to try to decide what order you should be doing things in? A lot of people with ADHD can benefit from a great morning routine. That's why I would recommend, if you're trying to put in the work to start a new routine, take a look at our sponsor, Timo. It's a paid subscription app that helps you organize your life, stick to your routines, and work toward your personal goals in a visual and motivating way. To learn more about Timo, head to blackgirllostkeys.com/Timo. That's TIIMO, Timo. While I got you here, can I ask you like two questions about parenting because you have such good experience with
Sure.
it? Like, as a Black parent with ADHD who's trying to raise an ADHD child, like, what do you think?
Two.
Listen, I was like,
Raising
I think
two.
they
Two.
like like the gray hair.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So, what was the type of messaging that you received as a family, and how did you manage around that support or lack thereof?
I will tell you, one of the first things that I learned was I had to let folks go out of my life, including family members who were gonna cause harm to my son's self-esteem because he had enough issues and he didn't need those, especially from friends and family members. I mean, it's I didn't learn that lesson overnight, and I need to say that. I want everybody to know none of this stuff happens overnight. These are lessons that take a minute to get through, and we had many crying days together and nights and all that good stuff. But that was the first thing is that I is sort of I guess the biggest lesson around that is I had to pick my battles and I had to surround myself with people who were going to support us. And and if it was something like my mother, old fashioned, she had me late in life, so she was not a youngster
Yeah.
when she and so her grandchildren, needless to say, she was and she, old fashioned. She had been teaching for she when she retired, she'd been teaching for over 50 years.
Wow.
And her thing was you just need to beat him some more. She would say it like but which is something that we hear lots from our families. But I
Yes.
will tell you that she got past that quickly. When I was able to understand to sit down and talk to her about it and not be angry about it and say, this is the deal now. And to say to her, honestly, your grandson gonna be a mess if you can't accept it and figure out how to live with it. And she and my grandmother, who both boys, I feel so fortunate that they got a chance to know and love her. And she was hilarious. She used to call my oldest one track, as in one track man. And I mean, it's a family joke. We say people in the family call them that, but everything was done out of love and
Yes.
lovingly, and never with any, negative anything to it. And so luckily we had a great support system in them and other family members and friends that I got. I will tell you honestly, the other thing that I tell, especially mothers, and I was a single mother for a long time. I mean, fortunately, the first 2 years I wasn't, which was I don't know that we would have made it if I hadn't had a partner at that point. But the one of the first things I say is get support from other families, from other mothers that have been through this. And I was fortunate. This was the best thing about me joining Chad was that put me into a community, especially when I got more active on the board, of people who had been there and done that or were going through it with me at the same time and who I didn't need to explain anything to, who, when my sons were driving me up the wall, I could just pick up the phone and scream and they'd be like, what they do now? And no questions asked and knowing what we went through, being respite care for me. One of my best friends lives in Kentucky and she's also a past president of Chad. She was actually the one that brought me on to the board, and our kids are about the same age. Both have two kids with ADHD. She has a son and a daughter, and then I have the two boys. So when I was going through it with my ex, and that was just a nightmare not to be believed. Her husband jumped in his truck, drove her from Kentucky, took my children and took them back to Kentucky because she was like, "You need a break." You need a break. And
Yeah.
I didn't even need to ask because she saw it. She knew what I was going through. She's, on top of it and came and got them. And then, later her daughter was going through some issues. And I was like, send me that girl. Send me that girl. I can be a
Yes.
girl mom for a little while with
Yes.
this one
That's
for the
what we
summer.
need.
Right. And
Community.
it's that kind of support that got me through, especially, once I was a single mom trying to do this. And that's, I have to say, and like I said, she's still, that was 25 years ago, 20 years ago. The kids have grown up that we, and we are still friends and still, have that kind of support for each other. And there are other people in the community like that as well. I'm very happy to say that now there are Black people in the community, particularly Black women, because that was never a choice
Yeah.
for me. other than the one or two people that were part of my CHAD chapter in Chicago that I was close with. But so I'm thrilled that there are some Black women that I can be friends with and have that kind of support with now too. But yeah, so that's one of the first things I say is to get that support around you and rely on it, because the saying, it takes a village, is no lie. And it takes a big village if you're talking about a kid with ADHD.
Yeah,
So a special village. So
I love
yeah.
it. Evelyn, I'm so glad that you got to join me for this first episode. When I
Me
was thinking
too.
about it, I can remember listening to you talk, and you said something very similar to what you said tonight about, like, hey, if family is your blockade to managing this thing the way you want to, it's time to let that piece of the family go. And it really was almost like, when you're just on the precipice of doing something,
Yes.
and you need that one last little,
You need
like,
that little
you're not
push forward.
sure if you hear that one thing and you're like, yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking
Absolutely.
right about that. Let me go and take that step.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that you did for me long before we got a chance to meet. So
Well,
I
I'm
couldn't
glad.
think of anybody else. Like, we might not even be here if I hadn't been listening in to
Well, I'm glad. I
ADHD
don't know what it
Palooza.
was, but that is something that I have honestly said probably since I figured it out. That has been one of my keys to surviving this craziness, because it is craziness. And then
It
of course,
Yes,
we talk about that's just the basic stuff. Then we start talking about raising Black kids with ADHD in some place like Chicago,
yes,
which is a whole thing upon itself. And so, there's you got to have some stuff in place. And, we talk about giving the talk, well, we got to get an extra talk. What's going
absolutely.
on?
And I'll tell
And
you,
so,
like, it made a difference hearing it from you. It wasn't that it was the first time I'd ever heard somebody say it. It was
yeah.
the first time that I heard somebody Black who did family in a way that's similar to the way that I was taught to do family, and who
Hmm.
gets in community the way that I did. It was like, oh, this sister's saying this. This isn't just like, because
Yeah.
how sometimes we can look at, we be like, white people just cut their family off for the smallest infractions.
Yes.
We could never do that. So hearing
No.
you say it, it was like,
No.
okay, this is it is as important as I feel like it is. Like,
Hmm.
I needed to hear that from somebody Black. There's
Yeah.
certain things we have to hear from each other.
It is. And I'm gonna tell you something else. Is part of that was part of the whole advocacy thing I was trying to teach the kids. Because my philosophy from day one was, you ain't living with me. When you 18 and out the house, I love you, but you ain't coming back to my house. And so you need to figure out how to live on your own.
Oh man.
Quick, fast, and hurry. And so that was one of the advocacy things I had, is for them to know to only surround themselves with positive people. So there were members of my family that, like, maybe not were not overt with it, and so I didn't like cut them out, but they would say little sneaky stuff to the kids. They knew better than to say it to me. And so especially my younger one, they are both very strong and know who they want to fool with. And they, when their dad was out of the picture, a couple of my, male cousins were gonna step up to the plate, but they were assholes. So, the way they wanted to do it. And my youngest was like, I ain't got time for that. He was like, nope, nope. And then we used to get so mad at him because he was like, I'm not playing that game with you.
At least he
Nope,
knew. He knew what the
nope.
deal is. He knew what he wanted, and he knew what he didn't want.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So
Evelyn, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with me on this first episode. I
I love it.
really,
I would not be anywhere else. I'm so happy and proud of you.
and just to let y'all know how I act behind the scenes, I was on the phone with Evelyn one day, and I was like, hey, Evelyn, I'm going to put on a podcast. And then I was like, Evelyn, Evelyn. And she's like, what? And I'm like, Evelyn, it's got to be you. You got to be the first guest on the podcast. It's perfect.
That is how it happened.
Ah! So, if you ever thought I got the special ADHD, I didn't. I got the same one that everybody else got. And I be calling my friends and roping them into stuff. And sometimes, just like today, they cooperate with me. So thank you again. I'm so
I would
tickled.
not be anywhere else. I am just, this is a long time coming, and something that I just have to, I'm so proud of the entire community, especially Black women, when I see the ways that we have stepped up to the plate around ADHD and taken a whole, and it took y'all's generation. I'm gonna tell you, because we wasn't ready for it. We could barely admit we had it or our kids had it.
Yeah.
So it's, I am willing to give those props to your generation, because you're the ones that did it, and to step up and to be able to say it and to deal with it and to bring it out of the closet and out of the dark, and let's talk about it and talk about the real world stuff that happens. You know how we talk about my house that ain't clean and ain't been clean.
Yes.
Yeah,
And that's what it is.
yeah.
That's what it is. Like, this is what's happening. It's real. And there's ways that you can live life around that. Like, it doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
there's ways to make it manageable. And I think we're all doing the work to make sure that people continue to see that through a
Yeah.
lens that looks like their lens. And I thank you for
Yes.
being that lens for me, because it made all the difference.
Well, that's, you know what, you telling me that is all I need to hear, to know that all of those years and some of the foolishness that I went through, because I did go through some foolishness, especially early on. All of it, to hear you say that makes every bit of it worth it. Because that was the only reason I even stuck in as long as I did, is
Oh
because
man.
I saw what was happening in our community as far as ADHD, and I I understood that, if I didn't do it, who was going to do it? Because clearly there was nobody else in the picture, and so I needed to step up and stay up to the plate.
How many Black women's projects all started because we were like, this don't make no damn sense, that this thing that I need isn't here and I need it. And every time
Yes,
I come to look for it, it's not here. Well, damn it, somebody's got to do it. I
yes,
guess it's going to have to be me,
be
because I'm
me.
the one who keeps looking for it and it's not there.
Hmm. Hmm. And the other thing about it that it makes me proud and happy to know that all of those sacrifices and all that, like I said, foolishness and craziness was worth it, was, one of the things that I've always kind of lived by, and was, taught by all of my family, my father's family, my mom's family, was, as a Black woman, I had very high expectations of me, as growing up. And so it was, you may bust down some doors, but what's important is you don't let that door close behind you. You bring some folks
Cannot. You
behind you
cannot.
with
That's
you.
right.
And so that's what, because I will be honest, for a long time, I did feel like, why am I doing this? It's not getting any better. I don't see no more Black folks in the fold than they were there, 10 years ago.
Right.
What's going on? And so when I first heard about you, I was like, oh my God,
Finally.
finally. Something's happening, and more and more naturally. But yes, that's what really makes it worth it, is because for a long time I really felt like it was all in vain. Like, why am I doing this? And my thought really was, if they don't see me stepping up to the plate, Black families don't see that, yes, it's real, and we have to deal with it, and we have some unique challenges, then who's gonna do it? Somebody has to do it.
Somebody.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's us, because we doing it right. We're getting there. We're getting there. It's so much different
Yes.
than it was.
Oh,
I can't
so much
imagine what it was
different.
like when you got there, because I know how much it's changed just since I've got here. I can only listen. We're gonna have to have a whole episode about that. I got one. We'll be back. Thank you for listening to Life with Lost Keys. If you enjoyed what you hear, go ahead and leave us a review and share us with whoever you like sharing your podcasts with, from whatever platform you like listening to them on. If you're loving what you hear, please support us at patreon.com/Black Girl Lost Keys.